Hi, this is Ms. Patty from Olympian High School. I want to use the Traditions and Encounters textbook to teach my students and Ms. Roberson's students about Egypt and Nubia. And we're learning that they're not the only societies that developed in early Africa. They developed alongside many other agricultural societies. But before we delve into that topic, let's talk about what Africa was like as early as 10,000 BCE and how it's going to change. There's going to be climate change, and then we'll talk about the development of agriculture. So first thing you need to know is that in Africa, the region we're going to study, originally, there was a large area called the Sahara Desert, which today the Sahara Desert is the biggest desert on Earth, but it didn't used to be the biggest desert on Earth. Around 10,000 BCE, after the last ice age, the Sahara Desert wasn't a desert. It was steppe land, grassland with numerous lakes, rivers, and streams. Okay, and the conditions of that area, the Sahara Desert, were much like the Sudanic region. Now here, be careful because it's easy for students to get confused. There is a modern country, a contemporary country called Sudan. I'm not talking about that Sudan. I'm talking about the area that's between the Sahara Desert to the north and the tropical rainforest to the south. I'm going to show you on a map what that looks like. So the Sudanic region I'm talking about is this here. Okay, so imagine the Sahara Desert to the north of Africa. Okay, so if I zoom out, I wonder if I can zoom out on this. It looks like I can't, but here's the Sahara Desert. It would be just south, okay, before the tropical area. So that region used to be nice. It used to be an area where people could live off of the land. There was wild cattle, wild grains, they could fish. Then they're going to start to experiment with early agriculture in the Sudanic region, in both the eastern part of the Sudanic region and the western part. So I'm mirrored in this screencastify, but just so you know, west is basically to your left and east is basically to your right, at least if you're looking at the map of Africa head on. So they start to domesticate cattle, they start to become nomadic herders, they play with a kind of a grain called sorghum, which I'm going to show you a picture of. And then in the Western Sudan, they're also going to start cultivating crops, and they're also going to domesticate sheep and goats that come from Chapter 2 from Southwest Asia. And by 7,000 BCE, they're cultivating gourds, which I'll show you a picture of, watermelons, and cotton. So let's take a look at a picture at some of those things so that you guys know and are familiar with that. By the way, I'm going to end up showing you a video
carried across the ocean from one of the planet's most desolate places to one of its
Sudanic and the Sahara Desert. So if I get distracted with that, let me show you some of the things that you may not be familiar with, like sorghum. So here's sorghum. You can see the sorghum here. So it's a grain that they were cultivating. Okay, and then gourds. So knowing what gourds look like. There you go. Okay, so at least we have a little bit of information about things we maybe didn't know before. So the early development of agriculture is in the Sudanic region, but again, not the modern country of Sudan. So this is going to have some effects. It's going to enable them to organize small-scale states. These early states were monarchies ruled by kings. The kings were seen as divine or semi-divine, and when the kings died, the Sudanic people often buried their deceased kings with servants that were supposed to serve them in another life. So this reflects a belief, a religious belief, that is also reflecting their agricultural society. They also had a belief in a single divine force, so monotheistic, just like the Hebrews from chapter 2, and they associated that force with good and as a source of good and evil, and they associated with rain, which makes sense because they're an agricultural society. Then a big change happens. Around 5,000 BCE, there's going to be the desiccation or the drying out to make it hotter and drier of that Sahara area. And we're going to see that area, the Sahara, no longer be able to support human life and become uninhabitable, more or less. So it's arid or dry and uninhabitable. So many of the Sudanic cultivators are going to move. They're going to go towards Lake Chad. Some of them are going to go to Uganda, and others are going to move to the Nile River, which is a really important, the principal source of water flowing through North Africa. So I'm going to show you all of those places in a second, but first I just want to finish this little reading section that you were supposed to read. It's just describing the Nile to you. The Nile is over 4,000 miles long. It flows north from Lake Victoria all the way to Egypt. And it used to flood every year until they built a high dam in the 1960s. But anyway, when it flooded, it was really important because it would leave behind a rich layer of muck that you could grow agriculture in pretty easily. And that's going to help us understand why the first civilizations we study develop around the Nile River Valley.